오늘도 종이책을 한번 읽어보도록 할게요. 제가 읽은 첫 투자책입니다. 한번 읽어보도록 할게요. 옛날 생각이 나네요. 그쵸? 이렇게. 사다리죠, 사다리. The Letter of Personal Finance. 오케이. 여기서부터 시작한 거예요. Conscious spending. 생각나요. Conscious spending. I can't remember it. It was like a long time ago. It's like about 5 years ago, I think. How often do you feel guilty about buying something, but then do anything? In this chapter, the antidote to unconscious spending, I'm going to show you a better way that's worth for tens of thousands of my readers. Let's create a conscious spending plan. What if you could make sure you're saving and investing enough money each month, but then use the rest of your money guilt-free for whatever you will? Well, you can with some work. The only catch is that you have to plan where you want your money to go ahead of time. Even if it's on the back of napkin, would it be worth taking a couple of hours to get set up so you can spend on the things you love? It will automate your savings and investing and make sure spending decisions crystal clear. I spend lots of money on eating out and traveling, but I never feel guilty. Unfortunately, most Americans were never taught how to consciously spend, which means cutting costs mercilessly on the things you don't love, but the spending extravagantly on the things you do. Everybody talks about how to save money, but nobody teaches you how to spend it. Conscious spending isn't just about our own choices. There is also the social influence to spend. Okay, conscious spending isn't about cutting your spending on everything. Conscious spending is conscious spenders who care about the value of something. Conscious spenders try to get the lowest price on most things, but are willing to spend extravagantly on items they really care about. Conscious spenders' frugality affects only them. Conscious spenders think long term. Conscious spending means you decide exactly where you are going to spend your money, for going out, for saving, for investing, for rent, and you free yourself from feeling guilty about your spending. That's ridiculous. You can look a little deeper. Hmm. Hmm. Where is it? Okay. Investing isn't only for rich people. In the previous chapter, you read about how users investing experts are, how we can do better on our own. Now we've arrived at the promised land. The chapter, well, you will learn how to choose your own investments, pay lesson fees, and get superior performance. You're going to determine your investing style by asking yourself some key questions. Do you need your money next year? Or can you let it grow for a while? Are you saving for a house? Can you withstand big day-to-day changes in the stock market? Or do they make you crazy? Then you're going to research funds and pick exactly the right investments to meet your goals. This includes all your investment accounts, like your 401k and Roth IRA. When people talk about their investment portfolio, they're referring to money in their 401k, Roth IRA, and perhaps even other investment accounts. By the end of this chapter, you will know exactly what to invest in and why, and you will do it with minimal human involvement, incurring minimal expense. My goal is to help you pick the simplest investment to get started and to make your portfolio easy to maintain. By doing just those two things, you will be on the way to getting rich. You will realize that lots of people with a high salaries and have no savings or investments. You will start noticing the excuses people make to justify not investing, including "I don't have time" and "the stocks can go down" and "I don't want to lose my money." Let's be honest, nobody really loves managing their money. I'd rather be using my money like by taking a food tour in Tokyo or the weekend ski trip with friends. Basically, I'm always on the outlook for ways to spend less time and get better results. When I was applying to colleges, for example, I created a system to write 3 scholarship applications per day and end up winning more than $200,000 in 6 months to pay for school. These days, I'm managing more than 1,500 emails per day about my blog and this book. This isn't to brag about how busy I am, but to show that when it comes to money, I am very, very interested in paying less attention while getting better returns. I've taken pains to research investments and they don't take a lot of time, maintain, and also pay off. That's why I urge you to combine a classic low-cost investing strategy with automation. Investing is not some revolutionary technique that I just invented. It's a simple way of investing in low-cost funds that is recommended by Nobel laureates and billionaire investments such as Warren Buffett and most academics. It involves spending most of the time choosing how the money will be distributed in your portfolio. Then picking the investments in this actually takes the least amount of time. And finally, automating your regular investment so that you can sit and watch TV while growing your money. Hey, we are lazy, we might as well embrace it and use it to our advantage. Lower expenses. As I discussed in chapter 6, nothing kills your investment performance more than expensive funds and then invisibly drain your returns. Investing in them is especially crazy when you can earn better returns with lower fees. Why would you pay for privilege of losing your money? With automatic investing, you invest in low-cost funds and which replace worthless, expensive portfolio managers, and you save tens of thousands of dollars in trading fees, taxes incurred by frantic trading, and overall investment expenses, and thereby outperforming most investors. As automatic investing frees you from having to pay attention to the latest hot stock or micro change in the market. You pick a simple investment plan that doesn't involve any sexy stocks and guessing where the market is going up or down, and then you set up automatic contributions to your investment accounts. And this way, you effectively trick yourself into investing because requires no work from you. This means you can focus on living your life and doing your job well, spending time with friends and traveling to different countries, eating at great restaurants, and instead of worrying about your money. I might well call them investing for people who have a real life. Yeah, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. Long-term perspective into practice. Diversify their portfolio. The test of a real automatic investor is not when the things are going up, but when they're going down. kept investing automatically every single month. It takes a strength to know that you basically getting shares on sale. And if you're investing in for the long term, the best time to make money, is when everything else is and getting out of the market. Bottom line, automatic investing may not seem as sexy as trading in hedge funds or bio stocks, but it works a lot better. Again, would you rather be sexy or rich? There was a powerful moment, and it's an example of a crossover point where your investments earn enough to fund your expenses automatically. Imagine one day you woke up and you had enough money in your account and never work again. In other words, your investments were generating so much money that your money was actually producing more money than your salary. That's the crossover point. It's an incredibly influential idea in personal finance. Money makes money, and at a certain point, your money is generating so much new money that all your expenses are covered. This is also known as being financially independent. What can you do once you hit the crossover point? At a minimum, you can do nothing, wake up and spend 3 hours at brunch, go work out, see friends, and practice your hobby. You can choose to work or not. After all, you could spend the rest of your life in spending down your investments. Many call this retiring early. Together, their financial independence plus retiring early fire. There is a lean fire now, which is people who decided they can, even a lean amount of money, often 30,000 and 50,000 a year, perpetuity. They reject materialism and embrace simplicity, often in an extreme way. Fat, tired, and for people who want to live an extravagant life at the highest levels of spending. Ever wonder how celebrities can spend $250,000 in a single party? That's because their money is earning so much money that they don't actually have to work to spend it all. For example, in 2018, Oprah Winfrey bought a house in $8 million. And that seems outrageously expensive, right? Here's the twist. Because in her net worth at the time was over $4 billion. If the money was even conservatively invested in the region of 4%, her investments alone, not even counting her salary, was generating $160 million in that year, effectively making the house an free for to her. When you hit the point of financial independence, you're being paid to live because the decisions you made years ago. It's like an Indian kid studying 10 hours a day to nail the SATs and then getting amazing jobs and opportunities decades later. Little Ray and doesn't remember the hours he spent studying. He just loves the results and the hard work. Even 25 years later. A city on fire isn't easy, and typically most people dismiss it out of hand. I'm too young to think about that, they say. Then just 5 years later, it's too late for me to start. Funny how the excuses changes so fast. Or the financial floods in regionalization. I'd rather spend my money now than nickel and enjoy myself in the next 30 years. Hmm. I have no problem with setting aggressive financial goal. In fact, I love it. I have no problem with people who have a different financial goal than mine. But when people using the words are miserable, rat race, and anxiety, that's a red flag. My suggestion, remember that life is lived outside the spreadsheet. Be as aggressive as you want with your goals and dream bigger than you ever thought. But remember that money is just a small part of the rich life. Really, it's not. Ask your friends. What do you think of investment means? And I bet they'll say picking stocks, guys. You cannot reliably pick stocks that outperform the market over the long term. It's way too easy to make mistakes, and such as being overconfident about choices or picking when your investments are drop even a little. As we saw in chapter 6, even experts can guess what will happen to the stock market. But because they've heard it repeatedly from the many investment vlogs and YouTube videos, people think that investing is about the picking winning stocks and that anyone can be successful. They can't. I hate to say it, but not everyone is a winner. In fact, most of these so-called financial experts are failure. Anyway, the little known fact and a major predictor of your portfolio's volatility doesn't stem from the individual stocks you pick, as most people think, but instead from your mix of the stocks and bonds. In 1986, researchers in Gary Brisson Randall Food and Gilbert before publishing a study financial analysis journal that rocked the financial world. They demonstrated that more than 90% of your portfolio's volatility is a result of asset allocation. I know asset allocation sounds like BS phrase, like mission statement or a strategic alliance, but it's not. Asset allocation is your plan for investing, the way you distribute investments in your portfolio between stocks and bonds and cash. In other words, by diversifying your investments across different asset classes, like stocks and bonds, or better yet, stock funds and bond funds, you can control the risk in a portfolio and therefore control how much money, on average, you will lose due to volatility. It turns out that the way you allocate your portfolio, whether it's 100% in stocks and 90% in stocks and 10% in bonds, makes a profound difference on your return. Later, other researchers tried to measure how close volatility and the return were correlated, but the answers ends up being pretty complicated. Suffice to say, that asset allocation is the most significant part of your portfolio that you can control. Think about the remarkable fact: your investment plan is more important than your actual investments. If you allocate your money properly, for example, not all in one stock, but spread out across the different kinds of funds, you won't have to worry about a single stock possibly cutting your portfolio value in half. Indeed, by diversifying your investments, you will make more money as an individual investor. To know how to allocate your assets, and you have to know the basic options you have for investing, which is where we headed the next. Since you cannot successfully time the market or select individual stocks, and asset allocation should be the major focus on your investment strategy, because it is the only factor affecting your investment risk and return that you can control. Stocks. When you buy stock, you buy shares of a company. If the company does well, you expect your stock and to do well. When people talk about their market, they're usually referring to an index of stocks like Dow Jones and 30 large cap stocks or S&P 500. 500 companies with a large market capitalization. Overall, stocks as a category provide excellent returns. As we know, on average, stock market returns about 8% per year. Stocks have been a good way to earn significant returns over the long term, but I discourage you from picking individual stocks because it's extremely difficult to choose winning ones on your own. Bonds are essentially are you using from companies or the government. Technically, Bonds are longer-term investments in 10 plus years, where certificate deposits or CDs involve lending money to a bank. Because they're very similar, let's just call them both bonds and simplify things. If you buy a 1-year bond, it's not the same as a bank says, hey, if you lend us $100, we will give you $103 back a year from now. The advantages of bonds are that you can choose the return or length of time, and you want to loan to last 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, and so on. And you know exactly how much you will get when you mature or pay out. Also, bonds, especially good government bonds, are generally stable and they reduce decreasing risk in your portfolio. See, the only way you will lose your money in a government bond is if the government defaulted on its loans, and it doesn't do that. If it runs low on money, it just prints more of it, not as an gangster, but because bonds are such a safe and low risk investment, and the return, even on the highly rated bond, is much lower than if you an action stock. Investing in bonds renders your money liquid, meaning it's locked away and inaccessible for a set period of time. Technically, you will withdraw early. You will just face severe penalties, so it's a bad idea. Okay. In general, rich people and old people like bonds, and old people like them because they want to know exactly how much money they'll get next month for their medication or whatever it is they need. Also, some of these grannies and grandpas can withstand the volatility of the stock market because they don't have much other income to support themselves or they have very little left on this and are still recovering from downturn. Rich people, on the other hand, tend to become more conservative because they have so much money. But in this way, when you have $10,000 and you want to invest in aggressively to grow, it's because you want to make more money. But when you have any $10 million, you're going to switch to aggressive growth to preservation of capital. I keep my money in a treasury bonds, and he replied, they don't make you much money. H really shouted back. They do, Grandpa said dryly, if you have enough of them. If you have a lot of money, you'll accept the low investment returns in exchange for security and safety. So a guarantee the bond at 3% or 4% attractive and wealthy person. Although 3% of the $10 million is just still a lot. Cash. In investing term, cash is money that is sitting on the sidelines, uninvested and earning only a little money in interest and from money market accounts, which are basically in high interest and saving accounts. Traditionally, cash has been the third part of the portfolio. Alongside stocks and bonds, you want to have total liquid cash on hand for emergencies and as a hedge if the market tanks. Of course, you pay a price for this security. Cash is the safest part of your portfolio, but it offers the lowest reward. In fact, you actually lose money by holding cash once and factor inflation in. That's why I say it's traditionally been part of the portfolio. As long as you are contributing toward your savings and goals, as I described in Chapter 5, and having enough to cover emergencies, and ideally more, you're fine. Don't worry about having cash in your investment account. Let's keep this simple. Asset allocation, the critical factor that most investors miss. If you bought in different kinds of stocks and stock funds, you don't be diversified, but still only within stocks. That's like being the hottest person in friendship and incomes is nice, but we are talking about the more recent competition. It is important to diversify your stocks, but it's even more important to allocate across different asset classes like stocks and bonds. Investing in only one category is dangerous over the long term. This is where the all-important concept of asset allocation comes into play. Remember, and dislike. Diversification is going to deep into the category, for example, in buying different types of stock, large cap, small cap, international, and so on. And allocation is A for going across all categories, for example, stocks and bonds. You should note that in the past is no predicting future results. In determining where to allocate your assets, one of the most important considerations is what returns in each category offers. Of course, based on the different types of investments you make, you can expect different returns. Higher risk generally equals higher potential for reward. Take a look at the chart above. At first glance, it seems clear stocks return the most. So let's all invest there. Not so fast. Remember, higher rewards entail higher risk. So if you are loaded up on the stocks and your portfolio dips in 35% next year, all of a sudden you are financially immobile, eating only trees goods, waiting to see whether your money climbs in a backup or you die first. Your asset allocation is actually one of the most important decisions you will make in life. It is a decision that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to you and for some millions. But in a particular, asset allocation has real world consequences. For example, many of us have heard of 50 or 60 years old who saw catastrophic drops in their portfolio during the last recession. Their assets were not properly allocated. They should never be invested in all equities, nor should they be sold during the downturn had they stayed in the market. Age and risk tolerance matter. If you're 25 years old and have dozens of years to grow your money, a portfolio made up of mostly stock-based funds probably makes sense. But if you are older, retirement is coming up within a few decades, and you want an attempt on your risk, even if the market tanks and you have control over your asset allocation, if you are older, especially if you're in the 60s or older, the gadget sake and such a portion of your portfolio should be in the stable bonds. Bonds act as counterweight to stocks and generally rising when stocks are fall and reducing the overall risk of portfolio. By investing a part of your money in bonds and you reducing some of your overall risk. Sure, if the biotech stock went up in 200%, you'd wish your bond and money wasn't all in the stock. But if the stock went down, you'd be glad your bonds weren't there as an buffer against losing everything, although it may seem counterintuitive. Your portfolio will actually have a better overall performance if you add bonds to the mix. Because bonds will generally perform better when stocks fall, bonds lower your risk a lot while limiting your return only a little. Once you've won the game, there is no reason to take unnecessary risk. Diversification is about safety in the long term. The fact that performance varies so much in each asset class means two things. First, if you're trying to make a quick buck off investing, okay, you will usually lose your money because you have no idea and what will happen in the next future. Any of the tells you do isn't full of commission based on a salesman. Second, you should own different categories of stocks and maybe bonds in a balance out of your portfolio. You don't want to own only US and small cap stocks, for example, or funds that own only small cap stocks if they didn't perform well for 10 years. That would really suck if, however, you own small cap stocks and plus large cap stocks and plus international stocks and more, you will You're effectively insured against anyone that is dragging you down. So if you're an investor in stocks and you want to diversify, buying all the different types of stocks and or stock funds and have the balanced portfolio.